I'm all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for accepting my invitation and coming to talk with me. And can you
That's okay.
introduce you? Yeah, can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Okay, I'm James Butler. I'm based in England. I'm a cricket journalist. I do a bit of radio and commentary and stuff as well. And I also host the Cricket Badger podcast. And we've had some really good guests on there over the last couple of months during lockdown in the UK. So it's worth having a listen to. If you've not listened to it yet, listen to it now or after you've watched it.
Yes, sir. As a journalist, as a interviewer, what you learned and what you observed in cricket, the present cricket and the past cricket and the future cricket. Can you tell about all this?
Or how things have changed, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I, I've been around far too long. And when I started watching cricket in England, it was 3 day championship, and it was a different kind of vibe, really. And the world's moved on quite a lot, hasn't it, over the I suppose, since the internet came in. And cricket's now got to kind of fight against quite a few other things to try and get itself out there to gain popularity. There's plenty of competing things out there that people find. So the world's changed massively, and cricket's going to have to change with that. I mean, I'm very much a traditionalist. I love 5 day test matches. I like the red ball game in England, but I also like the white ball as well. I like T20. I like the IPL, the Big Bash, the T20 Blast, the Caribbean Premier League, and all those tournaments too. And we've got to get sort of a happy medium between all of those competitions, fit them all into a calendar. There's only 365 days in a year, and that's quite a few. But when you start to actually think about how much cricket is played around the world, there aren't many days where isn't a cricket match being played somewhere. So I think cricket's got to be quite wise and almost use this COVID period to sit back and think about how it can progress. Really, they've obviously brought in the World Test Championship, which I think is a good idea because it adds a little bit of a reason to play Test matches, doesn't it? The fact there's a championship and a final at the end of that period, but obviously COVID's affected that dramatically. And I think the point system needs looking at as well because the point system is a little bit weird, isn't it? You can play a two-test match series, win one game, and get 60 points. You play a five-test match series, be very competitive all the way through, draw that series, and get far less. And that makes no sense to me. But I think the idea behind it, and the motives behind it, are good. But I think cricket needs to, as I say, needs to kind of move times, but retain its traditions and retain what we all love about the game from years gone by.
So you have seen cricket, and can I know when you started interviewing people and when you started connecting, when you got connected with cricket?
I worked for 10 years in local government in England, and um, I realised sometime during that 10 years that wasn't really what I wanted to do with my life. Um, and I went to university. I did a 3 year creative writing degree at the University of Leeds, and loved doing that because we did all kinds of writing, script writing, yeah, right to film and stage. There was writing non-fiction. There was writing all kinds of different things. And as I was older on that. Most of my friends on that course were a lot younger than me. I realised that I needed to try and get a bit of a head start sometime during that 3 years. So I started writing about cricket, which is the thing that I probably love more than anything else. And they always say write about what you love. So I started writing about cricket. Yorkshire was my team, so I wrote about Yorkshire cricket and set up a website, which at the time was called the Corridor of Uncertainty, which was something Geoffrey Boycott used to say a lot. You know, put it in that channel, the Corridor of Uncertainty, just outside Upston, um, and started interviewing a few players then, Yorkshire players at the time. Then the club asked me if I could do a little bit more. Yes, of course I can. And then they decided to appoint well, they call it a PR and communications manager, but it was basically the media manager. It, kind of the job evolved as I was there because I'd never had anybody really in that position before. And I started working at Yorkshire County Cricket Club then, and I was in control of their website, dealing with the press and dealing with all press inquiries on match days and otherwise, dealing with any sort of PR initiatives that we've had, and trying to show the public Yorkshire cricket in a good light. And we changed the website a little bit. We introduced social media because Twitter had only just really started. So we set up a Twitter account, which I can remember being very excited when that went past 10,000 followers. And I think looking at Yorkshire's account now, it's somewhere around about 160,000 followers. Twitter's gone a bit mad, hasn't it? We never really quite knew the potential for Twitter, I think, when it first came in. And it's ideal for cricket because you can get little messages out there and score updates and stuff like that. So, and obviously engage with the public as well. So I think Twitter's been a really good thing for cricket. Maybe not in other parts of life, but for cricket certainly. Yeah, so and I started interviewing players more. Obviously, when I was at Yorkshire, we went on pre-season trips and being back kind of action and footage from pre-season trips, which before then supporters hadn't seen before. We tried to start doing live streaming of cricket matches, the Yorkshire cricket matches, but we were told at the time that we couldn't do that when Sky had a live game on in the UK, and there aren't many days in an English summer where Sky didn't have a game on. It's I think when we actually calculated it, it was 3 or 4 days of live streaming on, and therefore the kind of the incentive to actually buy a really good kit and to do it properly wasn't quite there for 3 or 4 days of the summer. But we've seen since in English cricket, Somerset have kind of taken on that baton and obviously been given a bit more freedom to do that now. So the counties are starting to do a lot more in terms of showing their matches and showing their wares basically to people that can't get to games, because county championship matches tend to be played during the week when people are at work. But if you've got a little live stream in the corner of your computer at work, you can hide that when the boss comes around and you can still keep up to date with the cricket. So going back to what we said before, cricket needs to find ways of engaging with supporters and putting itself out there to make itself look interesting and exciting. The things that Somerset are doing, Yorkshire have done brilliantly as well since I left. Probably because I left, but that's another thing. The people that have taken on that task of making Yorkshire look good to the public, I think have done a great job. Taking on the social media and the website, it's fantastic these days. So I think it's good. Cricket is doing well, but it needs to do better. And it needs to be even more ingenious. It needs to find the bells and whistles before other sports rather than copying other sports at times. And I think the future's good. There are worries, particularly with the red ball. I think the attendances around the world aren't fantastic for red ball cricket. But that again is why cricket needs to find another way of tapping into the supporter base, because if you've got there are people that love test matches but can't necessarily get to them. There are people that would probably buy the shirts or pay for a little streaming service or do whatever else, and I think cricket needs to move with those times. But going back to your question about interviewing players, I know I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but started interviewing them at Yorkshire, then went freelance after I finished at Yorkshire, interviewed more at matches for radios and things like that. And then obviously these days with the Cricket Badger podcast, we're just coming up to the 150th episode of the Cricket Badger podcast. I was delighted to see it was number 2 in Great Britain yesterday and number 4 in New Zealand, and so it's doing quite well. And it's my baby. It's something I created from nothing, and it's very much my thing, the Cricket Badger podcast. So I'm quite protective of it. But had some brilliant guests on that down the last couple of years, from David Gower and David Lloyd, Mark Butcher, had Jason Gillespie. Just in the last week or so, we've had Michael Carberry talking about racism in cricket. We've had the chairman of the PCA, Daryl Mitchell, and Mark Wood, the England fast bowler, on. So getting some good guests on there. And I'd like to think that the guests are good enough to actually kind of hide the fact that I'm on it as well. So yeah, it's exciting. It's always nice to get good guests, and you know when you've done a good interview when you put the when you press stop on the record button. If you've done a good interview, you kind of feel quite good about life, and you skip away from the recorder. I think I enjoyed that chat, and usually if you enjoy a chat, then the audience that you get out to enjoys it as well. So that in a nutshell, probably quite a long nutshell, is my history of interviewing people in cricket.
Sir, you are a part of cricket. You and the commentator and uh, and the players. All this is a collection. It is a collection. You all are coming together and creating a entertaining subject and putting in a public platform, and you are making viewers to watch it. And it totally depends on you how you talk and how you write. People watches you talking, interviewing, asking questions, what kind of questions you are asking, and what are the answers they are giving. And while capturing cricket, what kind of a shot a player is playing, and what are the ball, what kind of a ball. It can be swing, it can be bouncer, it can be a black hole. All this. These all depends on uh, depends for a viewer to watch it for a long time or not. Just now you said that yeah, cricket should become more better. Cricket should become more better. Now it's too good. Now it's too good. And if we observe, cricket was uh, in television. People used to watch cricket in television. It shifted from television to internet. Now people are
Yeah,
watching in different platforms.
yeah.
Now and you are doing a great job, sir. You are making cricket to reach more people now. uh, in India, a lot of people don't know you. You are a good writer. I saw your book also. Can you name your book name? Can you tell? Yeah.
There's the recent book about Leeds United, which is a football book, so I thought I'd give football a bit of a go. But the ones I've done in cricket was the following on in the footsteps of cricketing fathers, which I interviewed a number of players. You get fathers, and then you get the sons coming into the sport and following them through into the sport. Examples of that would be, obviously people like Alan Butcher and Mark Butcher, Chris Broad, Stuart Broad, David Bairstow, Johnny Bairstow. The Hadleys was an amazing family. Don Bradman had a son who I talk about in the book, who changed his name to avoid the pressures of expectation following probably the greatest batsman of all time into cricket. So I spoke to quite a few about that and looked at the psychology of doing that, because you get, as soon as you see somebody walk out who has got the first time Stuart Broad on the cricket pitch in Leicester, there would have been somebody in the crowd go, Broad, is that any relation to Chris Broad? You can guarantee there'd have been that conversation. And then they start to watch that player and they start to judge that player, and then they have expectations on that player if their father was very, very good and one of their favourites as well. But they also get quite a lot of love as well, because if the father was well respected, then the son gets a little bit of credibility off the back of that too. So that's a book I'm pretty proud of, really. I think that went well. As I say, yeah, following on in the footsteps of cricketing fathers, that's out there. It's on Amazon. You can buy that if you want to. And then I did a book as well about a bit of Yorkshire history. Yorkshire's my club, really, and so I did a bit of a history book on there. And then the other book I did was about people that had killed people in sport. I think there's 33 people, 32 people in the book, and people that had been convicted of killing somebody, telling their sporting tales and then why they went off the rails a little bit. And I like the true crime genre, and I like sport, and I thought I'd put them both together and make a book about that. And that's called Killer Instincts: the trials and tales, I think, of murderous sports stars. So that's kind of a bit more of a niche kind of book, really. If you're into true crime, that's out there as well. But yeah, the major cricket one I wrote was following on in the footsteps of cricketing fathers, which still relevant these days. You still see people coming through, and you still hear every season you hear that a certain person's got a son that's trying to make his way in the game and what have you. And as I say, I spoke to a lot of people for that book, and yeah, I think that's a good buy. If you want a book for somebody that's a cricket lover, or if you're a cricket lover yourself, you could do worse. I think you could do worse.
Yeah, is that book is there in Amazon? People who
Yeah,
watches this video can buy that. Cricket lovers.
yeah. Just remember when you search for me on Amazon, if you want to have a look at what I've done, it's my surname Buttler is spelt the same way as Joss Butler. So it's James Buttler, because the traditional spelling of my surname is one T, but mine's two.
I'll put that link below this video in the description.
Okay, so look down there.
Yeah, in the description of this video. And my question to you is, you are good in writing or?
Sorry, can I just, you mentioned the point about us working together to make cricket look good. All the different components of cricket trying to kind of work together. And I think that's the responsibility of everybody in cricket, really. Obviously, you've got to go and do your job. A batsman needs to score runs. A writer needs to get his copy in on time. Somebody working in the admin in the office needs to do what they do as well. But I think the underlying thing of that is that you have a duty to cricket to try and promote cricket and make cricket look as good as you can. That doesn't mean as a journalist or as a broadcaster that you don't ask the hard questions of people. If somebody's done something wrong or not played very well or whatever, you've got to go down that line with them. But I think, generally speaking, everybody in cricket kind of knows that responsibility, knows they've got to try and promote the game. It's different in different ways. The first priority of a batsman is to score runs. The first priority of a journalist is to write good copy. The first priority of a broadcaster is to do his commentary well. But if you do all of those things, you are promoting the game anyway, and those things come together then, don't they?
Writing or speaking, which one you choose?
Sorry, say again.
Writing or speaking, which one
I
you
was just
choose?
drinking my coffee. It's early on a Sunday morning here, so I'm just trying to wake myself up.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Writing or speaking, which one you choose?
If I'm honest, I'd say speaking. The thing that I like more than anything in cricket is to have a microphone, be live, be at a cricket match, and be talking about the action that's in front of me. That's a real buzz at times. If you commentate on a really good game, and you think, you know, like I said before, you know if you've done a good job, you know if you come off the mic at the end of the game, whether you've done okay or not. There's a feel that you get. And if you call the action quite nicely, and if you've got it across well, and you've got a co-commentator next to you that has contributed as well, you know you've done a good job. That's a real buzz, the live cricket aspect of that. And I like doing my podcast as well and talking to people. A lot of the Cricket Badger podcast is done the same way. There's the same kind of structure to interviews. There are differences sometimes, but I do a 20 questions feature where pretty much everybody gets the same questions. And it's amazing how different they are. And that's the same as a cricket match, really, is that you go along to a cricket match and every game's different. Every game has certain flashpoints, certain highs, certain lows, and certain different finishes. So you're never calling the same game twice. You're never doing the same podcast twice. So the broadcast experience, I think, is really quite exciting. And interviewing people after games and stuff, I think is good fun as well. Whereas writing's a different thing. Writing's much more of a solitary existence. You know if you've written something that's good. You know if it, and it's an enjoyable process, but it's more consuming. And it's harder work, really. I can talk rubbish about cricket until the cows come home. It takes a long time to write a book. It takes a long time to get a copy to it, and with deadlines and the pressures involved in that. Whereas obviously when you're commentating on a cricket match, as soon as that last ball is bowled and you call the action and you discuss the aftermath, that's your job done for the day, and that's quite a nice way of doing a cricket match rather than still being in the press box typing away and trying to get your copy in by a certain time. So I enjoy both sides of that. But I think if you were to give me one thing to do for the rest of my life, and you were going to pay me for it, live commentary on cricket matches would be what I'd choose.
Can I say you are the person who can communicate with any cricketer in the world? Can I say that? Yeah. My question is, can I say that you are the person who can communicate with any cricketer on this planet?
In what way? I don't know. So is that a question
About
or a
cricket,
statement?
talking. Yeah, interviewing a cricketer.
I think that if you, I don't think I'm the best interviewer. There's a number of people I really admire, and I think one of the things that in any walk of life that you should do is you should look at people you really admire in your field, and try and learn as much as you can from various people. I think I'm far better now than I was when I started, because I think you learn by your mistakes sometimes, and you learn by what you do well, and you get better at things. The more you do things, the better you get. That's in any aspect of life, isn't it? But within cricket, there's cricket writers that I really admire. More on the news side, people like George DeBell and stuff like that work for Cricinfo. He works for Cricinfo. George is brilliant, and he's got a really good mind in finding a story and then making it accessible to people and telling it well. You look at the commentators around the world, and you've got some absolute cracking examples of commentators. Jonathan Agnew is great on the BBC Test Match Special. Then with Jeff, I actually like Jeffrey Boycott's commentary because I think he's really knowledgeable and incisive on the game. I think you look at the other end of it, and sort of Danny Morrison and Michael Slater, who are a bit more high end at times. They're really good as well. Ricky Ponting, I think, is very good. Mike Atherton's great on both sides of the coin. I think Mike Atherton's a really good cricket writer and a very, very good broadcaster as well. And then obviously we saw in the final of the World Cup last year, Ian Smith was just on fire, wasn't he? He was at the top of his game, the peak of his game, commentating on action in front of him that was, well, you don't get more exciting than that. And he did it justice. And I think, if in any part of broadcasting or journalism, if you can do it justice, then you've done okay, haven't you? And Ian Smith was just on fire. And with Nasser Hussain next to him, he just called that final just brilliantly towards the end. So I think you try and learn. I don't think anybody's ever arrogant enough to suggest a finished article, and I'm far from it. So I'm always looking at other ways of making my podcast and my work better, and trying to see how other people do it, and thinking, well, George does that really nicely, Mike Atherton does that really nicely, Ian Smith does that, and trying to take bits from everybody that you admire and trying to roll that into yourself, and then bring in. But I think the key to it, and it's something I've heard other people say in different walks of life, but the key to anything, I think, is to try and learn from very good people, but making sure you keep yourself in there as well, because ultimately people are listening to you, and I think you need to be honest about stuff. You need to be true to yourself. If you believe something, you should say it, as long as it's not obviously abusive or nasty to people. So you kind of learn from the best, but you also make sure you keep yourself in there, because ultimately you've got to be, you've got to sit down. I wasn't trying to do a Mike Atherton impression. I wanted to do me, but learning from other people.
So, writing and speaking, both you do to you're expressing your thoughts about cricket. You're expressing your thoughts about cricket with your writing and with your vocal cord, with your vocal sound, and the 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 result is people gets your point, people listens to you, and people understands what you're writing. So my question is,
I just had a call coming in on my phone then, so I missed that last little bit.
okay. So I was saying that your writing and your speaking, and both you are doing to make uh, the person who is listening to you or who is watching you, they should understand what you are saying about cricket. You're framing
Yeah.
sentences, you are selecting a particular type of words to create impact, to create effect. You are expressing to impress, or you're expressing only the observation that you observed.
I think what you should always try and do is remember that some members of the audience are really knowledgeable, some members of the audience maybe aren't.
Yeah,
So you should never be. You should also always bear in mind who you're talking to. Um, but I think if you put it this way, if you ask me to present a radio show or to do a podcast on horse racing or nuclear physics, I would not have a clue, and I would struggle to fake it. And people who are experts in that area that are tuning in for a really good listen would not listen very long to my thoughts on nuclear physics or horse racing because I have not got any idea at all. Um, so I think you need to have some kind of knowledge base and understand the game a little bit, know what you're through, and then the voices that you're interviewing and talking around you to add to that. But if you understand the game and you know the game, you kind of have this, you know what questions to ask of them because you know what interests you. And I think that's where it comes from, really, is that if it interests you and if you're enthusiastic about the subject, then that comes across to whoever's listening or viewing that because you are bringing the right kind of content, and you are passionate about that subject, and I'm passionate about cricket, and then if you get somebody that's willing to talk to you openly about that subject, you get a good end result, and people will enjoy that because hopefully you're asking questions they're thinking when they're listening, and the person's answering them, and you get a decent end result. So I think enthusiasm and passion and a little bit of knowledge can take you a long way in sports journalism. You can't really fake it because there's a lot of people out there who know a lot about cricket, and if you try and fake it, then they will see through you very, very quickly indeed. So you need to have some kind of knowledge and at least be able to support your arguments. It might not be something that everybody agrees with, but if you can argue the point and you can argue it justifiably, then you've got a point, haven't you? And if somebody thinks differently, then that possibly makes good radio or a good listen because they're sitting at home or driving in their car thinking, he's talking rubbish again. But I think enthusiasm, passion, and knowledge takes you a long way in sports broadcasting or journalism, and then you obviously need to get a little bit of luck along the way, to be in the right place at the right time to get the right job. I've had that sometimes, and I've not had that others. And yeah, I think that's generally the ingredients that make it anyway. That's what. And when I first started working for Yorkshire, and when I first started doing the Cricket Badger podcast, what I thought about in the thought process of what I was trying to achieve. I'm not saying I always was successful, because nobody's perfect and everybody gets it wrong every now and again. But I always try to put myself in the position of me in the stands or sitting at home wondering about cricket. What would I want to listen to, or what do I want to hear, or if I was a fan of Yorkshire Cricket Club, which I only was the day before I started at the club, and I still am now, then what would I want to know about the club? And a lot, Amazon and what have you, are doing some brilliant fly in the wall documentaries, and that's effectively what sports fans want to know. They can read scorecards, they can look at what a player's like on their TV screen, they can hear his post-match interview, but they don't know what happens when he goes in the dressing room. They don't know what happens when he goes home at night. They don't know what he's thinking about when he's having his cornflakes in the morning. And I think sometimes that's the more interesting kind of tale, isn't it? I think there's a thing at the moment called CPL Life Stories. I don't know if you've seen any of those, but they're talking to some of the Caribbean Premier League players and they're following them with cameras and going to their houses. And they had Kimo Paul, is it the West Indian fast bowler on the other day, and he was brilliant. You know where he lives and where he grew up and where he slept in the same bed with his mum and dad, and now he's a star on the Caribbean Premier League stage and a West Indian international. And I think those things are fascinating when you actually get behind the player and you see where they've come from and their story and their journey through the sport. That is really interesting. That's not something that you know. If you ever seen those people out like to really get to know, and that's what I try and do on the podcast at times, is try and some of the questions are strange really, and get something which isn't in the public knowledge. But tell us a secret kind of questions where you find a little bit out about a player that you never knew before, and hear about their kind of tale away from cricket. And I think that's the thing. You also want to know about cricket too, but I think if you can find out a little bit more, we're all inquisitive, we're all nosy.
Okay, you're making me to listen for you for a long time.
Sorry, say that again.
You're forcing me to listen to you for a long time.
Oh, sorry, is that a bad thing? You want shorter answers?
No. I'm saying that I don't know whether you got my point or not. You are you are creating interest in me. You are creating excitement in me. Yeah, your voice. Yeah, as a communicator,
I don't know if you were getting bored of me. It's a compliment. That's hopefully what your job as a broadcaster is.
yeah,
I mean, I know I'm the interviewee today, and you're asking the question. But
yes,
if you can set something up which is a good listen and people want to hear more, then you've done. That's what you're trying to do, isn't it? And trying to get people to tune in the next time. Hopefully, when they hear the theme music come on at the end of the podcast, they'll think, "Oh, that was good. When's the next one out?" And that's the ideal scenario.
maybe you have enough knowledge about how to talk and how not to talk. That is what making you to uh, that is what making you to what to talk and what not to talk in this video.
I don't know if you've ever done live radio and you can't stop talking on a radio service. Yeah, radio silence is a no-no. You've got to keep talking even if it's absolutely rubbish. And you do after a while get quite used to everything on. That's what I'm doing now. I'm leaving the gap and continuing to speak and filling in until somebody else's voice is able to be heard. So you do train yourself to talk rubbish nonsense at times, but hopefully it's, as I say, nonsense with a bit of enthusiasm and a bit of knowledge as well.
You explain about cricket with your writing and with your vocal cord. You explain, and it is very important for you to be a keen observer. You have to put lot of your mental energy, physical energy on cricket,
Yeah,
and you're doing that since last 10 years.
more than that, yeah. But yeah, just
More
over a
than that.
decade. Yeah.
Maybe that is one of the major reasons uh, that made you to write a book, publish a book, and to show to show audience that this is what cricket is. This is what I observed. This is what my point of view, how I see cricket. James Butler sees cricket in this way.
I don't necessarily think the book, because the book's very much telling the tale of other people. So my views aren't in there really. It's I'm giving other people the platform to tell their stories. And I think in those kind of roles, you need to, like we just said, you need to know when to rub it on and to fill the space, but you also need to know when to be quiet and allow other people to answer the questions. You're great at it, because you ask the question and you sit, you stand back and you let me speak, and then when I've finished, you come back in with the next one. I think I get watching it on television, just falling in love with every aspect of the game. I just, I went into the ground when I was 7 years old. My family were a little bit concerned I might be bored for the day because it's a long time for a 7-year-old to sit there and not have anything else to occupy his thoughts. And I just sat there most of the watched cricket. It was a country, Kent versus Yorkshire. It was a Sunday league game, and I just sat there and watched it all day long. I can remember the smells of tobacco in the stands because it was the days before smoking had been banned. I can remember the old blokes in their overcoats. I can remember pretty much every single thing about that day because it was. I guess it was a little bit like meeting a beautiful woman or a beautiful partner, and you see them for the first time, and you look at their eyes and their hair and the way they speak and stuff like that. And it's the same with cricket. You look at that at the sport, and you see it in things all the little characteristics, all the same things, the umpires, the fast bowlers, the spin bowlers, and obviously when you first do it, you don't understand it all. But then because you were falling in love with it, you go home and you read about it and you look in the newspapers and you go back the next time and you like yourself more and more and more because you are going to love it even more. And that's it. If you fall in love with something that deeply, like people fall in love with cricket, you never lose it. It never goes away. And you become very passionate about it. You obviously learn about the game as you go through because you remember your heroes and you remember stories, you remember things as well. But you never lose that love of cricket. Um, it stays with you. You become sort of well, everybody having a role in promoting the sport. It's very, very easy to promote what you love because it's the same truth, aren't you? It's not like I'm stood next to a black car in a car car showroom. This poor unsuspecting family coming in, and I'm saying, look at this beautiful model. You need to buy this. It's £2,000, and you know it's absolute heap of rubbish. I'm selling something in cricket which I believe in totally, and therefore it's not hard work. You say there's a lot of hard work, but for most people who are lucky enough to get working in sport, it's not really work. I can remember a quote I saw once where I think it was something along the lines of, and I'm probably going to misquote this very, very badly, but if you can find what was it? If you can find a job you love, you never have to work a day in your life or something like that. And obviously that's not totally true because you still have to work and you still have to get up at certain times and you still have dates in your diary you have to stick to. But generally speaking, if you are working in something and you're speaking about something that you enjoy and you love watching, and you'd have probably watched anyway, even if nobody was paying you for that. That's not really work, and it's very easy to pass it about, and it's very easy to sell that to somebody because you 100% believe in
Okay, and
it.
what is Indian cricket to James Butler?
England cricket. Um,
Indian cricket.
Indian cricket. Sorry. I love Indian cricket. I can remember I was 10 years old in a playground in at school, and my one of my best mates to this day was Indian. Where I grew up, there weren't many Indian faces, and Samson, who started at my school, and the first thing I said to him, and I saw him in the playground, I went up to him, this new boy at school, and I said, "Do you like cricket?" Because the only time I'd really seen an Indian before then was on the cricket pitch on the TV. So it was my kind of like naive way of saying, "Hello, how are you? Welcome to my school." And um, we've stayed friends ever since. And when we get together, we have too much to drink, and we talk about music and cricket. Um, and from then on, when you've got a friend that actually, because although Samson was born in England, he's got obviously massive appreciation of his Indian heritage, and he supports India. He travels around the world watching India play. Um, and there will be one day, hopefully soon, I'm able to go with him somewhere. But so I've watched India, right from the start, and obviously that. that World Cup final where Dev lifted the World Cup was a real watershed moment for England, and made a very passionate nation of 1.3, 1.6 billion people, whatever, who are massively into cricket. So you put a massive smile on their face, and ultimately, the IPL was born, and all kinds of things came from that, didn't it? But there've been some fantastic players down the years for India. Obviously, if England are playing India, got to be honest, I'll support England. But I like watching the IPL. I like watching Mumbai Indians. They're my team. If you have to ask me for a team in the IPL, it would be Mumbai Indians. Big fan of Rohit Sharma. I really like watching him bat. I've loved watching Dhoni down the years. I've loved watching Virat Kohli. I think there's been Jasprit Bumrah with his very peculiar action, but he's a brilliant bowler. And I really love that. And we're talking about the Amazon documentaries and the fly on the wall stuff and how you can get behind the scenes with a sport. There's the Mumbai Indians one, really cool. Like Kieran Pollard, had him speaking in the dressing room. That was quite interesting to me. But yeah, Indian cricket's great, and obviously as an English fan, you see the Indians come across to England and really struggle. In England always beat them. I'm saying that with a smile on my face because that always beat them. But in English conditions, England seems to have the upper hand. But England, COVID-19 permitting, are going to India in early next year, and that is probably the biggest test for any English touring side. And that and going to Australia, and the conditions that change in the subcontinent for English batsmen and for an English bowler are totally different, aren't they, to what we get in England? Traditional English seem around a little bit and seaweed when in India, very dry, and that's going to be interesting to see how England cope with that. The early next year, if that goes ahead, because historically England haven't been great going to India and going to toe with the Indian side. So I don't think any English team truly believes that it's a great team until they travel to Australia and won, and travel to India and won. If you as an England captain can have both of those things on your CV, and there's not many of them, that's when you can start calling yourself a really good England side and a great captain, because it takes something special to win in India and Australia.
As an observer, watching cricket in cricket stadium and watching cricket in YouTube or in any other cricket medium, in a digital medium, what is the difference as an observer that you observed?
Actually being at the grounds, I think sometimes not a lot really, because sometimes press boxes and radio booths, you have your effects mic going outside to pick up the applause and what have you, but you are almost in a soundproof box at times, and you therefore don't quite get the atmosphere that people out in the stands are getting. But you get a cracking view, and you get all the replays on the TV screens that are in the press box as well. So there's swings and roundabouts to that. But nothing beats actually sitting in the stands alongside people, actually feeling the excitement and feeling the atmosphere. And obviously, if you're at home and you're viewing it, that's a different experience again. But you've got the commentators, you've got the people taking you along on that journey with them. So there's different ways, different things for different people, I suppose. But ultimately, if you love cricket, you take any one of those opportunities.
So, what is world cricket today, and what will be the future cricket tomorrow? Can you put your camera a little bit? Uh, yeah,
How about it?
yeah. Now it's good.
Yeah.
So my question is, what is world cricket today, and what will be world cricket after few years, in coming
Well,
years? Yeah.
that's a big question. And I wouldn't like to say that this answer is going to be spot on because I've not got mystic powers. But I think the way cricket's going, we said at the start that cricket needs to be careful and it needs to evolve and it needs to get into the modern age, but retain its traditions and retain the things that that we all grew up loving. I think the World Test Championship is going to be important. I spoke to Brad Hogg really recently, the left arm spinner from Australia, and he's done an article which I enjoyed reading, which was about sort of compartmentalising the calendar, so that every single team plays the same amount of games in the same amount of standardising. And I don't think that's a bad position at all. There would be, I think there'd be some exceptions to that. I think the Ashes series, probably England against India, India against Australia, maybe when the big three are involved, that might change a little bit. But generally speaking, I think we need to spread the money in the world game because India are very powerful, probably too powerful. England and Australia are the same to a slightly lesser degree, I think. But yeah, there's a lot of good about Indian cricket, but you should never have one member of the ICC dictating to everybody else what should happen. Because if you're serious about the world game being successful and cricket being successful around the world, and ultimately for India to be successful, they need to have competition and they need to have some nations coming through. We've seen Afghanistan rising from nowhere to being a force on the world stage. And it doesn't, I don't think it ultimately helps. I mean, obviously India have opinions on the game, but I don't think it ultimately helps if you have one member of the ICC who has such a big voice and such a lot of power, and sometimes spits their dummy out and goes home and says, "I'm going to play anymore. It's my bat, my ball. I'm going home." So I think there's money in the game, but that needs to be circulated so that some of the lesser nations, in inverted commas, have funding. They're able to actually compete and grow and become great on the world stage. I'm going to answer your question slightly differently. What I think should happen. But the spread of money is one thing. I think when we have world events, the World Cups and stuff like that, the temptation at the moment, and this is largely with India as well, and the temptation has been to reduce the number of teams down to 10 in the World Cup and what have you. And the reason for that was because India went out of a World Cup early one year. The TV revenue for India getting a long way through a tournament is a lot bigger because a lot of people their team and lose a bit of interest in the tournament when India go out. But that's not really how you should build a World Cup. To just look after one side. So I always, my favourite World Cups of the past have been when Kenya did really well in a World Cup. Canada did some giant killing. The Netherlands have done well. And when you see some of the affiliate nations coming in, and sometimes the matches are very one-sided, but sometimes you get a giant killing, and that's what you get when you have smaller nations in there. And the only way smaller nations are going to learn, like Scotland and Ireland and Afghanistan, who have come through, as we've said, is by playing cricket against tough opposition. They might get hammered sometimes, but they might win a few times, and they'll learn from that. And so I think that's good to grow that pool so that World Cups are a little bit more inclusive. And I love the Champions League as well. I went to the Champions League in South Africa in 2012 when Yorkshire qualified for it, and I think that's in T20 terms. And I obviously have to understand that there are only 365 days in the year, so fitting in a Champions League isn't the easiest thing. But maybe even if it's just once every 2 years or once every 4 years or something like that, where the best domestic sides around the world come together in one country and play each other for effectively bragging rights, where you get Yorkshire, Surrey, the Jamaican Talabahs and Sydney Sixers, and whatever, whoever's qualified. I find that really interesting in that particular space. It was one of, I think it was either the final year or the penultimate year of it. And I think that concept involves So, a number of players that played for those squads were internationals, but there were a number of players that played for those squads who that was probably one of the biggest stages they played on. In front of the TV cameras against some of the very best players in the world. So I found that really interesting, and I think getting a sponsor for that and putting that on TV would be good. Because I know the players enjoyed it, I know the coaches enjoyed it, and I know the fans that were there enjoyed it. It just, I don't think it was on enough TV stations, and it needed a little bit more of a plug. But I really enjoyed that competition. So I bring the Champions League back in some kind of format. But I think that would be that's the challenge of keeping red ball cricket alive and relevant. Quite dominate. I don't know about you. I would think, but I also I'm almost infinitely forgettable. You remember the odd six over the video. You remember an Australian heroics at the end of the game, or you remember Buttler winning Yorkers, or something like that. But you won't really remember the narrative of that T20 match for very long after it's finished. Where I think the very best Test matches, you remember them for years and years and years. So they are a little bit throwaway. They're a bit kind of McDonald's to they're not a 5-star restaurant. And I think we need to be careful that if we play too much T20, I think the IPL is far too long. It goes on forever, doesn't it? I mean, there's some brilliant matches in the IPL, but it could be condensed a little bit, couldn't it? Because it goes on for 7-8 weeks at times. I know it won't this year, but that's too long. And people's attention spans aren't for 8 weeks of the tournament. You need to get a tournament that's nice and compact, has a start point. You can follow your teams through the tournament, and then there's a final at the end, and here are some kind of trophy. The IPL goes on for about 1/6 of the year. It's just ridiculous. But it's a great tournament, and there's brilliant players playing in it. But I think we need to get real and actually remember that there are. White ball isn't everything. You can get quite immune very quickly to watching 4s and 6s. When I was young and people didn't have these massive bats that were about that thick, somebody hitting a 6 was an occasion. He's just Ian Botham hitting 6s at Headingley in 1981. Look at him hitting 6s. AB de Villiers hits more 6s than that now, and he's sleep, doesn't he? Because the bats are massive. You can get a leading edge goes over long for 6, and you become immune, I think, and it's almost like that's a normal shot. You play a reverse slog sweep and it clears the sky. Oh, he's hit another 6. You forget how amazing these shots are because you see so many of them. And I think, the temptation then is for cricket to bring the boundaries in even more and to make the bats even bigger and to restrict the bowlers even more so that we see more 6s and more 4s. But we need to go back towards giving the bowlers a little bit of a chance in matches as well. Bowling is an art form, and bowling in T20 has evolved a lot. And when you've got Chris Gale at the other end of the wicket, you're coming into bowling. Chris Gale's had been fed on raw meat overnight. He's coming out in the mood. He's quite a scary prospect, I would imagine, for everybody. But they've really evolved the slow balls and the slow ball bounces, the York, and bowling has evolved. Because they get pretty flat, hard tracks and big bats playing up. So that would be another thing that we need to not get too carried away with white ball. Make it special, reduce it if anything, make it special and make it more an event rather than just something you see on telly every day with 6s flying everywhere that just becomes a little bit normal and a little bit boring. A 360-degree innings from AB de Villiers should never be seen as being normal, but we see them all the time because we see so many games. And I think we need to be careful of that because it ends up becoming routine rather than special. So that I'd be looking at maybe just reducing the white ball reducing the length of some of the competitions like the IPL, and just giving at some stage as well. And I think this is important as we go forward. This answer could go on for days, by the way. So come in if you need to. But the mental health of players, I think, is massively key. I remember a time when I was following Yorkshire, and there was 2 weeks where we were on the road, and the players were playing or practicing for 2 weeks away from their families. You see the tours now that overseas teams do, where they're away from home for, they hardly spend any time at home. They some international players these days because the fixture list is so congested. There's a danger coming out of COVID-19 where cricket's actually thinking we need to recover from this, we need to play more games, we need to get money back, that they're going to flog cricketers to death. And they are going to reach every single match they can, try and recover from to try and get cricket going again. I think we need to be very, very careful with that because the mental health of players, we've seen in England, and I'm sure it's the same around the world, we've seen in England the likes of Trescothick and Trott and others who have come out and said they've struggled with mental health, and some more visibly than others, but it's a problem, and it's a problem in everyday world, not just in cricket. But we need to look after players because ultimately they might be very special. We need to look after. Need to look after them. If it wasn't for that, ultimately they're going to die. Whether that's mentally or just exhaustion or something will give up. We won't be able to enjoy the game before. So, how to kind of reduce the work, we need to make sure that we look after players, excuse me, and give them a little bit of time off again. Have to recharge their batteries. I know that a lot of them have been sitting in COVID-19 and have enjoyed it. Enjoyed you get away from the game and think about this a bit and think about this. Doing their own things we need to realise that, we've always cricket during COVID-19, but I think if it's changed how much we love the game because we've missed it, and we don't need it every day to actually exist. We can exist in our lives cricket match in a day. And if we give players a little bit of time off that again, that isn't going to harm cricket. If you get a jaded player, somebody that's not quite mentally right or is tired, I want to turn up at a ground and see a player as close to 100% as possible playing cricket. You're not going to get 300 days out of the time So we need to make sure we look after the health and well-being of cricketers. Ultimately, you can talk about finances, you can talk about fixtures, you can talk about everything else around cricket. Players are massively important because they want to actually play the game. And ultimately, it's about playing cricket and playing cricket. So it's very important to monitor. You don't want to burn out. My theory is after COVID-19, there's going to be such a rush to play so many series and try and catch up the next year. And we're going to flog these players by squabbling. And I don't want to see that.
Actually, you are a cricketer. You are a cricketer. You are playing with the words. You're playing with the sentences. You're playing with the observations that you have. You are expressing your thoughts about cricket using different vocabulary, and you're trying to make the person who is watching or listening to you, you are making him to understand your words, which means you are a good communicator. Your thoughts are reaching to the people, and you're getting response. You're getting a positive response for the words that are coming from your vocal cords, which means you are successful in creating an impact. You are successful in creating and an effect in the people who are following you, who are watching you, who are listening to you. That is why the reason I'm listening to you. I don't want to disturb you while talking because you're making your voice is very clear and your vocabulary is so have a lot of clarity, which is making me to understand exactly what you wanted to say. That
I want to
shows,
speak to you every day. I want to speak to you every
yeah.
day if you're going to. Thank you.
And there are people who watch this video from India. They'll be knowing you. They'll be knowing you. And can you tell more about cricket that you observed since last few years? You already told right now, but yeah, I have a question which is related to cricket. I have a question. Sachin Tendulkar is one of the uh, good cricketers in the world cricket. He's inspiration for a software developer. He's inspiration for a writer. He's inspiration for a badminton player. He's inspiration for a tennis player. You know, he's inspiration for a lot of people who are working in different fields, who
Yeah.
are doing their work in different fields. And cricket, I think cricket is the only game which created impact in lot of people, and it is creating impact. It is creating effect still today. I think the marketing people like you and the people who works in cricket should make cricket reach more wider to the villages, to every part of the world, so that people will. There are a lot of things which can be learned from cricket, and people like you will explain cricket using good words, using using good sound. You are trying to express cricket using good sound and good words, and people like you should make it more wider. Should it should reach more places all over the world, so that
First,
there are a lot of people who can think that, yeah, I can also do something by seeing Sachin Tendulkar, by seeing Virat Kohli, by seeing Rohit Sharma, by seeing Jasprit Bumrah, and there are a lot of good things which can be learned other than cricket from them. And you as a person, you spend a lot of time in cricket with players. You'll be very closer to players, and you'll be interviewing. I saw you interviewing Afridi, Shahid Afridi. Unfortunately, he affected with coronavirus,
yeah.
COVID-19. I saw in the news. And yeah, you will be interacting with different country players, different country uh, cricketers. And what you see, and also you watch coaches very closely. Coaches, cricket players, all the people who are connected with cricket, you will be interacting with them, and you'll be observing them with your eyes and with your ears. You'll be observing them, and with all those observations, you'll put in your book, or on the podcast, or whenever you interview them. So what
Yeah.
you are a top viewer, I can say. You are watching cricket, not only a particular cricket player. A cricket player batsman watches only the bowler or the cricket, but you are the person who watches everybody who are connected with cricket. You have to spend a lot of time in observing uh, all these people, and you will be putting that in a book or interviewing people. So you have a lot of, you should use your mind more, I can say. You should use your mind more.
that's,
Yeah,
that's what my
you should
teachers
use.
always said. I think I mean, first of all, I want to appoint you as my agent because that was very nice what you said. But I think there is a difference between England and India um, in the dynamic a little bit. As you quite rightly say, Sachin Tendulkar is right up there, isn't he, in terms of sporting icons. But in India, where you've got 1.6 billion people who are crazy about sport, he is huge, isn't he? But in England, there are other competing factors, I think, a little bit for national herodom. So the likes of, if you think back over the last few years, Kevin Peterson and Andrew Flintoff and some of the bigger names in English sport, in English cricket, probably haven't had quite the same impact in England. I mean, everybody knows who they are, but when you've got footballers like David Beckham, Wayne Rooney, and you've got other sports, and you've got Olympic gold medalists, and you've got rock stars and what have you, the that pecking order you're competing for attention with other people. So maybe you don't have quite the same influence that Tendulkar does in India. When Tendulkar speaks, everybody listens, don't they? You can run an article with Sachin Tendulkar saying that the sky is blue, and people will put that as a headline because, it amuses me sometimes when Sachin Tendulkar says something that is really boring. It's a headline and it's an article and it's read by millions of people because it's Sachin Tendulkar. If Joe Root said exactly the same thing, it wouldn't get anywhere near a newspaper. So there is a difference a little bit in terms of the ability to influence because of the stature that somebody has. And Tendulkar has obviously gained a huge amount. It's affected his life a massive amount. He hasn't got the freedom to do things because as soon as he hits the street, he would be mobbed by hundreds of people. But he's obviously always, he's got positives as well from cricket. He's got a very comfortable lifestyle. And he's got a responsibility a little bit as well to use that lifestyle or use his stature in the game to say the right things, as has Virat Kohli. And I think Virat Kohli is a real credit to India and to cricket. I sometimes wonder about his captaincy, as I've said to you before, but I think as an ambassador to the game, Virat Kohli is brilliant. He says a lot of the things I want him to say. Put it that way. He defends Test cricket. He isn't a massive advocate of the 100 in England. He says the right stuff and he cares about the sport. And I think, if you're going to get to his kind of level, they're good qualities to have because we need to look after the sport. And if a high profile, I remember when people started to talk about 4-day test matches, was it last year? And Virat Kohli came out and says, I don't want 4-day test matches. And all of a sudden that argument stopped. Everybody stopped talking about 4-day test matches because Virat Kohli knocked it on the head with one sentence. And so, you do get quite a lot of power when you get to that kind of level. And as was it Spider-Man, Superman, with great power comes great responsibility. And Virat Kohli and Sachin and the like have got that. And so it's good to see them thinking, caring about the game as well, because it could be quite easy, I guess, if you've got a big ego and you're not quite as intelligent as those two guys, and you, to reel off a load of rubbish and influence the game in a bad way. But those two don't do that, and that's credit to India and credit to them, I think. But yeah, you have. You've got players in this country who have the ability to influence. And I think most of the time, cricketers, generally speaking, the ones anyway, are good, intelligent, caring souls who want the game to prosper and want the game to do well. And they say good stuff and they think before they speak. And that's good. That is good. Because you often see in other walks of life, maybe people aren't quite as careful with what they say, and it can be quite inflammatory at times, and it can lead to negative results. But I think you're right. But I think in England, the challenge is to get cricket heard at all at the moment, rather than actually really influence people, because cricket has a real battle on its hands to get itself heard. Excuse me, and to talk to and to try and get itself above football or soccer or whatever you call it in your country, and other sports and other entertainment industries and other things that take up people's time. So cricket has that challenge to really, wave at the world and in England and to say, come and see what we're doing. And one of the ways to kind of to get past that challenge is to create the heroes and to get them speaking about the game. But I don't think that's all of it. Whereas in India, you've got pretty much a captive audience, haven't you? It's religion and cricket, and everything else comes behind that. So when Sachin speaks, everybody listens. When Virat speaks, everybody listens. When Rohit speaks, everybody listens. When Joe Root speaks, a journalist in this country is finding it hard to get him above other things in the news schedule, and that's the difference between the two countries, I think.
Yeah, but I'm listening to you. You're from England.
Yeah.
I'm understanding you, but why I thought, why not England person connect with the Indian people?
Absolutely. Cricket is one big happy family, really. There's a hashtag on Twitter, isn't there? Hashtag cricket family. And I think one of the things I've seen through COVID in this country and around the world is people helping each other out. And you mentioned Shahid Afridi, get well soon. I think everybody in cricket cares about the game and wants to help each other at times. Why I'm talking to you today and why people give me interviews and why people recognise the fact that people are working hard to do stuff and to try and make the game look good. And there's no reason why somebody in England can't speak to people in India. There's a big cricket crazy country, isn't it? And that's fantastic. And listen to the Cricket Badger podcast, because I will welcome you as listeners, and follow me on Twitter at cricket_badger, and follow me on Facebook, and have debates about cricket and talk to each other about cricket. You tell me what you think about English cricket, I'll tell you what I think about Indian cricket. We'll talk about each other's cultures and ways of life and cricket loves and who our favourite players are and stuff like that. And that's a conversation that we've seen probably increasing during lockdown, but because there's been no cricket to comment on, I've been doing a GOAT cricketer thing, greatest of all time around the world, and getting people on my Twitter feed to vote on it. I've seen other people doing similar things, talking about matches of yesteryear, talking about who our favourite players are of all time, picking our best 11s and what have you. And we're now desperate to see some cricket actually being played so we can stop those chats. But you're right. I think I'd love the Indian public to engage with me, absolutely, and some do already. I mean, I've got a lot of listeners in India, but not 1.6 billion. So if all 1.6 billion want to tune into the Cricket Badger podcast, that would make my stats go quite crazy.
Yeah. And my question to you is, why IPL worked in India?
Why did the IPL work in India? Because they did the right things at the right time, and England didn't. England, if you go back to that period in English cricket history, Giles Clarke was the chairman of the ECB. We had Alan Stanford in the Caribbean, who promised the English Cricket Board the world in terms of money. There was $1 million match in the Caribbean. There was quite a vulgar, in my opinion, pile of money at Lords for a press launch of Alan Stanford's involvement with English cricket, and England followed the powers that be in England at the time followed the dollar signs and followed the money. And if that had worked, and if Alan Stanford had been honourable, and if that had all come through how he wanted it to, who knows how the landscape of cricket would look now. But Alan Stanford ended up being a fraudulent charlatan that ended up in jail, rather than being a Texas billionaire who was living in the Caribbean with pots of cash that was going to make English cricket great. He ended up being behind bars and leaving English cricket with nothing. And whilst all that was happening, the BCCI was creating the IPL, and did a very good job doing it, and has one of the biggest sports tournaments in the world now. So you can see that one strategy worked very nicely and the other strategy didn't. The T20 Blast in England's fantastic. Having an 18 county structure, I think, in England's brilliant. And it's something that there's challenges with that. But it's something that no other country in the world has got. The history and the structure of cricket that England's got is, I think, brilliant. But the IPL worked in India because largely you've got very good weather. Largely you've got a cricket country which is mad about cricket. You could put any kind of cricket in front of the Indian public to a degree, and they would lap it up and like it. And you put a few bells and whistles on it and got some of the world's best players there. So it's not rocket science, is it? It's clever. In England, it rains a little bit sometimes. In England, there are different challenges. As I said, there's competing factors. Nothing's going to ever get past the Premier League football. You know, the Manchester Uniteds and Chelsea's and Tottenham's and what have you have got far bigger fan bases than any of the English counties, far bigger. And the money in those games is far huger. But the IPL has led the way in terms of T20. I think the Big Bash has followed it quite nicely, and the Caribbean Premier League's followed it nicely. The T20 Blast has kept going and has increased year on year. But other than the IPL being too long, like I said before, the IPL is brilliant, and I love watching it.
Why Indian cricket is working these days? Only why a lot of people in the world are talking only about Indian cricket? Why not other cricket teams?
You think everybody in the world's only talking about India?
Most of the people from different parts of the world talk about Indian cricket more than other cricket teams. Why?
I think there's I can assure you there are a lot of people talking about other cricket teams, but I do take your point to a degree. And one of the things is the way the world is. I know, looking at my stats on the website and the podcast, it surprised me initially. I get a lot of listeners in China. I get a lot of listeners in America and Canada and places that aren't traditionally cricket. So you've got a lot of Indians living outside of India. So they're able to then talk up in their respective countries, follow the cricket back home, or even go and see them when they come. You know, the Indians living in England will fly along to the cricket matches when India play in England. So you've got a lot of expats that live elsewhere that keep that discussion about Indian cricket going worldwide. But effectively, it's still Indians talking about India, but they're just living in different parts of the world. I mean, there's loads of English expats everywhere, but you know, we've already said that India's got that fevered mentality about cricket, which maybe doesn't quite exist in England. We'd love to see it exist in England, but it doesn't quite exist in England because there's other things to occupy people's minds. But I wouldn't say that. I think a lot of people talk about English cricket. People talk about Australian cricket. Everybody wants to see the West Indies do well, because we've got great memories of them in the 70s and 80s, and Brian Lara and what have you, and would love to see them having success in red ball cricket as well as white ball cricket. It's been a brilliant story watching Afghanistan come through. That story is just stuff for feature films. And you're right. Something is attacking you.
Some bug.
So Afghanistan is a great story, but you're right. I mean, there's so many Indian fans. That's why a lot of people talk about Indian cricket. There's so many Indian supporters worldwide.
If I talk more deeper about cricket, a cricket player from England cricket eats a particular type of food, and from Indian cricket team, a player eats a particular type of food, and food is the major thing which is the reason for the development of the mind. So, and you said that cricket is working, IPL is working in India because there are a lot of people who are watching here, and at the same time the climatic conditions. You said that in England there is rainy, lot of rain is there in India, in England.
It doesn't rain every day, but there is.
It is one of the reasons. Yeah, it is one of the reasons you said. And IPL is working in India, and climate is one of the reasons, and players and the watchers, the viewers, and there are a lot of people who watches cricket in India. That is why the reason that is working here. So there are a lot of factors which are making cricket to work in India. Cricket is treated as God. Sachin Tendulkar is cricketer is treated as God here because something is working here. Something larger amount of people are connecting with this game. Larger amount of people are connecting with this game, and you are part of the larger people. You are one of the parts, and which is very very important part. I can say you are expressing cricket. You are expressing the observations that you have about cricket, and a lot of people watches definitely this video in India. Cricket is, you know, obsessed. People are obsessed with cricket. A lot of people watch it. Even this video is also is going to reach a lot of people. Lot of I'm a cricketer. I said you. I'm a cricketer. I'm a professional cricketer. Lot of people in my Facebook. If I share this video, cricketers, all the cricketers will watch this video, and the association, the state association, will watch this video. Definitely, the officials will watch this video because I played for at least I represented for club. I represent as a captain, as a player. I represented for my college team as a captain, and all these people watches this video, and especially the cricketers. Cricketers will watch your talking, the way you said about cricket and your observations about cricket and the difference between England cricket and Indian cricket and the world cricket, what is happening in the world cricket and the future cricket, what is going to be the future in James Buttler observation. And so, yeah, you wrote two books about cricket, right? You wrote two
Yeah.
books about cricket, and what are the names of that books?
On this day in history, Yorkshire cricket, and following on in the footsteps of cricketing fathers, which is more of a general one. I think one of the most interesting chapters in that one was the Richard Hadley, Dale Hadley, their father, was the captain of New Zealand as well. They followed him in. Four sons, and three of them ended up playing for New Zealand. Was it five sons and three played for New Zealand?
Sorry. I'm stopping. I'm stopping. Sorry to interrupt you. I forgot my question actually. My question was food. The type of food a player is taking in different countries is one of the major reasons for the cricket. If we take cricket as a mindset, and food is one of them, one of the part of it. Food.
Well, seeing as the thing in front of me here is a chocolate bar, I probably not the best person to answer that question. But the food nutrition is massive in sport these days. I mean, when I grew up in the 80s and what have you, some of the cricketers, saying they were fat is rude, but they weren't. They didn't look like athletes. Whereas now cricketers look like serious units. They are ripped, and they are real proper athletes. They take fitness, they take food, they take diets, they take the psychology, they take everything really seriously, because I think one of the things that sportsmen do, and sports do, is they try to look for just that 1%, or that 0.5%, because when you get to the very highest level, I mean, just think about the World Cup final last summer, when New Zealand and England playing at Lords, and England won in the Super Over. So we had a tie, and then effectively a tie in the Super Over, and England won on boundary count back. There was nothing between those two sides that day, and therefore, when you are in a battle like that, and when you are playing for something that important, you go back through the 4 years that England put into that World Cup triumph, and they were getting better and better as the World Cup was coming around the corner. There will be little things they did in that 4 years, in terms of what they ate, in terms of how they were made to think, in terms of fielding practice, in terms of every single aspect and potential aspect of cricket. The coaching staff will have thought of, put plans in place. The players bought into that culture and did what they were asked to do, and probably made suggestions themselves as well. And that means that when you come to a game like that one at Lords, when everything matters, every little last thing, a fielding mistake, every single thing matters. If you've put in all of that work in the run up to that, you've got every chance of succeeding, haven't you? And that's what I mean. There was in English cycling has been very successful, and a lot of that's down to the science of the bikes. They shade it, they sandpapered or whatever, a fraction of a millimeter off the handlebars or something like that, which basically adds 0.0001 of a second, or takes off 0.001 of a second on a lap of a cycling track. on its own, that means nothing at all, really, does it? But if you add another 100 examples of that together in that sporting unit or that sporting team, and you are metaphorically sandpapering off 0.001 of a second, or adding 0.01 of a run, or whatever to your combined unit. When the chips are down and when it really matters, those things make a difference. And food's part of that, isn't it? You know, what you eat and what you put in your body, it's your fuel, it's what comes out the other end. That's why Virat Kohli is eating a very strict vegan diet and he's very, very fit and good looking and has a beautiful wife. And I'm eating chocolate.
Okay. So James Butler in this video is telling that food is one of the major reasons why Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli are sitting in the top positions in cricket today.
I think so. I think, and more. I think, like I say, everybody's looking for that extra inch, that extra advantage. And we've seen the body shapes of players change over the last 20 or 30 years massively. I mean, Liam Plunkett, one of my favourite players, who spends half of his life in the gym, he's one of the fittest blokes you'll ever see. Johnny Barker, most of my time with New Yorkshire, watching through the blue check where they run between marks and get quicker and quicker and quicker. And he is just a beast in fitness. They're taking fitness so seriously. If you go back, and with all due respect to players I'm going to mention, but if you go back to 20 or 30 years and you put Mike Jackson on the blue check, and you put Ian Botham on the blue check, and you put Alan Pratt on the blue check, their results would be nothing like what players these days are doing because they are machines. And you've then had to have skills, physically on top of fitness base, and you've then had hopefully some good mental coaching as well. And that's what makes them world beaters.
Okay, and I want to talk with you again in coming days about different aspects of cricket. I want to know more about you and what you think about cricket and how cricket helped you and what you are doing to cricket. All these
Yeah.
questions I'll ask in coming days because already it has been 1.5 hours. The video is too long. I want to stop you here. Uh, I'll ask you more questions in coming videos. If you give me time, if you give me whenever you're free, if you give me time, I'll try to ask you more questions. I'll frame more questions and I'll more about cricket. And I'll try to reach this video to a lot of audience. I'll try to ask people who are influencers in India. I'll ask them to uh, I'll ask them to share this video to large audience, so that your thoughts can reach more people about cricket,
Okay.
especially the cricketers, local cricketers here, especially the the cricket officials who watches this video. And yeah, and thank you so much for giving me your valuable time today and telling me about a lot of things. Can I put this video on YouTube?
Of course you can. And sorry, it's been a pleasure. It's always good to talk to you. And I wish you every success with your ventures and your YouTube channel. And we're all looking for the same thing. And we're all trying to help each other. And we want cricket. We all care about cricket. We want cricket to enjoy it. And you're doing a great job.
Thank you so much again. Thank you so much again.
That's okay, I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah.